당은 되지.学당은 좀 셈나려야 주기다. 냠렌지에 릭티카레스 당은 마 도르고에 매버서가 되카레스지 모테지제 디카레라나 다심제 탐지게 되나 산요고반 토퍼쇼 선배 삼로디 제주셈 디 하는가 주기라 안지게 야 공부도 땅고 그래서 야 니가 공부 땅고에 디레스 다랑 지징에 삼로서 디기디나 nga 생알 nga 세데 랑 제바진데 직 알디 요고도 지셴이야 디기 뭐지 다가 나랑 동화서 나랑 지부기다 디기 두고 선배 랑 지진 삼로디다 딩은 마 매가서 그래서 지나다 셴심제 탐지기 되나 산요고 본토버쇼스 베삼로디 야게 땅고래 공부 땅고래 해서디 다 디린 쇼에 가서 딩이디 다 디고 쉬버려.
Good afternoon. This morning we started to look at the difference between the self and other cherishing minds. So when we divide our mind into varying classes, there are those that need to be eradicated and those that need to be developed. The mind that apprehends others as dear, the other cherishing mind, this is what we need to strengthen our habituation to. And the self-cherishing mind, the mind that is habituated to grasping at oneself as dear, this is what we need to eradicate. And this is an essential component in that to enable us to become enlightened for the sake of others.
디콤 제게 탑lâm 되랑한 저기 다시 냠치 권에 삼당세다 균제명이 균요권에 삼당세야 되니기 로장당 그림바 곧 냠는 제다림바 가 니순고래
To generate the determination or the will to achieve supreme enlightenment, this comes about in dependence on two methods. There's one, which is the equalizing and exchanging self for others, and then there's the 6 cause and 1 effect method.
semchen shen semchen tamje rang na shin dewa dewa jibare dunga mi dewa jibare dinsa semchen tamje le digi du chungwa sho sem digi du chungna sembe samlo di samlo de yana yado daya dang ane semchen tamje dunga dan cha gu du cheza semchen rang dunga mi dewa ne semchen tamje dunga gu gu mare china semchen tamje dunga da jana chawa sho sembe samlo di dingi de jambadan zewa se jamba se de semjan de dunga dewa de dena sembe samlo di jamba che di kumya che semjan de dunga da jana sembe samlo di je 닝지 첨보 닝지 che dinga 저기 di kumya de dingi de lo de komo gore jere.
We don't have the opportunity now to go through all the steps in detail, so to present just a summary of how to generate bodhicitta. The starting point is to recognize that myself and all beings on a fundamental level are exactly the same in wanting happiness, wanting freedom from suffering. There is no difference between us at this fundamental level, and therefore there is no basis to differentiate between beings in terms of who is more worthy of happiness or freedom from suffering. We are all the same at this fundamental level. Reflecting on this well, deeply, leads to the generation of love, which is defined as the sincere wish, may all beings experience only happiness, as well as the generation of compassion, which is defined as the sincere wish, may all beings be freed from suffering.
semje dewa de dena sembe samlo kom semja de dunga da dana ni be samlo du komje da di di komba kom de kansam chilia andi samlo ni shukche je do ana gar nganzo la samlo na garli gi rosne da semje tamje dunga da jaya da na semje tamje digi da juya digi juya dang 심지어 동안에 저기 탑람등이 탑시제쟁이 탑시지긴 선배이 지긴 선배 섬로디 아주 리고레스.
And this, through starting to reflect on the equality between beings in desiring freedom from pain and suffering and wanting to abide in lasting happiness, we then, as we develop love and compassion for them, the wish starts with, may they abide in lasting happiness, may they be free from suffering. And we develop this further to, I shall do all that I can to ensure that beings eliminate the causes that will otherwise lead to suffering and cultivate the causes that lead to lasting happiness. So here, through the habituation of this way of thinking, we develop the sense of responsibility for the welfare, for the happiness of others.
나다 심지어 남제 누가다 자야다 심지어 되기 주에 대화의 덴바딩이 지긴 선배 삼로리야도 다는 지긴시데 딱가는 세월에 선배게다 제알이야 탑람 가려어래서야지 탑람 제기로 와가 주겠다 탑람 제기로 와 지나다 심지어 남제 대화 되기 주에다 누가다 자야야 나랑을야 아니 가르고스네 연대인지 고구도 스타가 지금 gendün 주발이야 강한 마태바 아니 지금 가리네 홀 로바체를 제 투여유바 뉴여유바 직소고도 진짜 내내기 심지어 탐지기 디기 주야야 아니 지금 디기 주야다 동아세기 때 탑람 약쇼디 상예고바래 상예고바 톱나 아니 젠리야 판바 주야다 and the 동아시아 디기줄에 판배 개침을 줍투게다 상계 나시마도 민도 지산다 상기 고파도 마토다 탑민도 셈베기다 미 상기 고파 토버쇼 셈베기다 대신하도 장주 셈자데 제사 셈제 탐지기 된다 탐 동아시아나 디기줄이라 디 된다랑이 상기 고파 토버 지기 상기 고파 토버쇼 셈베 삼로디 데니시네 도스리토고 디 데네 용 야르게 줘야래 디 용고래제래.
The reflection then starts with recognizing that we are all the same, and then one develops this wish further, thinking, may all beings have happiness, may all beings be freed of suffering. Further still, I shall ensure that they attain freedom from suffering and abide in lasting happiness. And whilst one is going through this process, at this point it is still a mere aspiration. But to take it beyond a mere aspiration to being a determination where one actually does something, one will think to oneself, how can I actually help others? How can I help them achieve a state of lasting happiness? And there one will come to recognize that oneself needs to develop extraordinary qualities so as to be able to help all beings precisely in accordance with their own unique personalities, their own unique karmic imprints, and engage with others in ways that don't lead to any harm, that don't bring them any difficulties at all. To have those good qualities and that required wisdom, one has to become a Buddha, because it's only a Buddha who has perfected all good qualities and completely eradicated all faults, and therefore can engage with others perfectly in accordance with their own unique karmic backgrounds and individual spiritual dispositions. So here, one generates the determination to become a Buddha for the sake of others. And that is the definition of bodhicitta.
semjen tamje sammasana ngazliya jing rangi punjada rangi buguda rangi phamada rangi nyindigilya jiahu chuna sembegi digi chuna sembe samlo yorwa dangane jisada endile cherdane anzu jige ngazu gyahap mitige chasa yakbu yonasim deni je ngazu ge zawegi jambadi jambjige gege nubad zawad chungju yedere 다지 디야 지게 뉴베처다야래 야처다야래 그래서 당한 주기 파마다 분야다 소수기 부울야 즉 대화대 되나 선배 제와도 여바디 디제와디 다디 가르섬 거서 나 주기 미유디 파마다 분야다 년디 되길 마도 현달 섬당 거 말. 진짜 디 믹바디 파 파처다제 거 디고 다세디 샘전 탐제를 섬다제 샘전 탐제를 파 미제 다 대화대 대나서 몇 삼다에도 제가 잠바세 고메 등아주 철다에 되래. 제가 당아주 인지세에 사본능아주 자와 충충주요다. 그래서 나도 분자다 파마다 안지게 소수가 부르신 대수 동아연의 동아다 자나서 몇 삼로셔로 받아. 제가 디야 철다에 멜마서는 아주 지금 눈물로 철다에 제가 디 가르스네 제가 디 미버디 샘전 탐제를 미제 미버디 파 갸셔다제 샘전 탐제 삼다제 샘전 탐제 동아다 자나 자우도 샘비 도시네 아주길라 잠바다 제와도 예되바디 다 미버디 파 샘전 탐제를 삼다제 갸셔다제 도시네 야네 야도 삼다에도 대코 니버 철철철 라신이 두고래지 잠바다 제와 닝제 니가
All of us, we have on our own continuums the seeds of love and the seeds of compassion. And we can say this with certainty because both love and compassion arise within us. The thought arises, may this person, for example, experience only happiness. May they be freed of suffering. The limitation comes, though, in terms of to whom our love and compassion arises. It tends to arise most readily and most forcefully with those with whom we identify with most closely, that we feel a stronger affinity with. Most obviously, our own family, our loved ones. But also with a larger community or group that we identify with, such as our nation. So here, much more readily, those seeds ripen and we generate the wish. May these people I care for be freed of pain and difficulty. May they experience only happiness. And this is the expression of compassion and love. What we need to do then is expand the object to which we express our love and compassion, or in relation to our love and compassion arises. We need to free ourselves of these self-imposed limitations, restricting our love and compassion to just those that right now, at this time, in this life, we feel an affinity for. And we also then need to deepen our understanding of what love and compassion means, what it means to have the seeds for happiness and be freed of the seeds for suffering. So we need to expand this object, or the object to whom our love and compassion arises, and develop that strength of love and compassion beyond our current limitations, so that it encompasses all beings, and that the expression of love and compassion is for a state of happiness that is completely freed from suffering, a state of happiness that is lasting, not merely temporary.
한 자와 공부레스 제사디 고매게 자위 시딩한 주결 여바디 잠바다 자와 충주 여바디 야 야셔다 야네 야도 삼다 야 김세로 삼데래 김세 디 샘제듬 대와 된고비 김세 가래 샘제 동화다 자고비 김세 가래서 김세 삼다 야 김세 삼다에 가서 샘제 탐제네 나나진 대와 되바 집어 콘솔레 대와 고고하래 콘솔 동화 고고 찍바라 와서 제사다 나나레 대와다 동화 고고 콘솔 대와 동화 고고 찍바라해서 김세 삼다 디네네 잠바다 제와 딘신 영원 용투그레 베스네 용투그레 가르세네 거기 나주기 진 잠바다 제와 세디 샘기 야네 양도 삼다바이네 네 샘제 탐제리아 잠바다 제와 네 용투그레스 제가 김세 삼다 디네 삼다도 디네 샘제 탐 산조고바 토벌 쇼스 베장시 고미야디 리기리에서 되고 아주 곰나들 지 냠네 삼당타 때지 디 삼로디게당 아주길라 자위길로 여제 디양모 공패의 땅고그래 에서데 땅을 삼로디 디야게 땅고그래서 랍지 디제고래 땅아주 제리를 마선 디레다 디 디네게 잠바다 제와다 장슈심 고미야디 디셈등 아주 야골레나 땡아주 제리 야골리고 제리 야고 차고래 제리 야고 쳐는 아주 규된 겐디 야고 차반자 하는 마오바나 하는 개와 치마 가와 처음에 야고 중요해요. 탈바 산지고 와 토발레 타니 장슈심바 차야 타니는 루고래지
The method then to generate bodhicitta ourselves within our own continuum is to meditate on love and compassion. But for us to generate love and compassion, to be of sufficient strength to give rise to actual bodhicitta, we have to rely on reasoning. The mere expression, no matter how heartfelt, may beings be happy, may beings be free of suffering, on its own will be insufficient to generate love and compassion of required strength. So we need to utilize reasons. And firstly then, as we utilize the two reasons I've already presented, the first being that there is no difference between myself and others. All the differences that we observe in terms of personality and physique are superficial. At the fundamental level, we are all the same. We desire happiness, freedom from pain and misery. So there is no basis to differentiate between myself and others. And in terms of who is more worthy for happiness and suffering, and freedom from suffering, there is no basis for differentiation. We are all the same in this regard. The second reason to utilize is to recognize that we all have on our continuum the seeds for love and compassion. So therefore, becoming a bodhisattva is not something that is beyond any of us. All of us, through training our mind, can strengthen our love, strengthen our compassion in this very life. This we can do. As we have the seeds, by watering them, nourishing them, they will grow. Through utilizing these two and other reasons, we engage in the preparation to generate actual bodhicitta, become bodhisattvas. And to the extent that we cultivate these causes, we are creating the causes to ensure not only good rebirths in our future lives with excellent conditions, but that the attainment of enlightenment comes ever closer.
지산디 요레스 다디 요바된 간조 세고 하고 도여러와데 지산디 매바서 고레에세 다디 매바서야라 간스 매바서 고레라나 다디지 간조게 잠바 공고레세들 잠바데 제와 공세 디뉴 공비게 가지 잠바데 제와데 가지 슈처신반나 란치진 삼로도 슈총주 고레 지나고 샤다 대신에마 랑 잠바데 제와 공레 로소다 란치진 매바서야게 탑람지요마다 란치진 삼로도 매바서야디 독초데 가르라나 잠바다 제와 고미야라 현재 semjen 탐제의 디기디 되나 선배기 semjen 탐제는 동안다 자나 삼삼요도 대시 삼노가 랑치선세 나랑 지부 대화 약고 중고도 나랑 지부 동화 사고도 선배기 소소랑 지부 삼다도 거로봐 다 대시 지삼다도 다 지부 잠바 제와고는 랑 지부 파랑 삼마다 semjen 탐제 디기디 된바 semjen 탐제 동안다 자나 선배 삼노 두 삼고모도 semjan tamje digi duya도 dunga du야데 nga kale gaje kimna nge kale kyabgis nga dunga gaje na dunga tingi tangdo lenji chikin sembe samlo li khongre deli yodo ranji samlo ko ma do kas meba sugo chesa ranji sin samlo di meba suge tablam di sianle jamba da zewa komya de leje.
We all then have these seeds of love and compassion on our continuum. The way they are expressed is usually at those we feel a stronger affinity with. They're also expressed, though, in terms of ourselves, in that I want happiness. And in this way, we're expressing love primarily for ourselves. I want to be freed of suffering. We express compassion to ourselves. So this we need to transform. And what we need to transform there is our own self-obsession. This placing our own happiness and wish to avoid pain and misery first and foremost. We do so through recognizing the faults of cherishing ourselves first and foremost, or grasping at ourselves as dear. And the way to eradicate the self-cherishing mind, the grasping at oneself as dear, is to cultivate love and compassion. So love and compassion is focused on all beings. And to the extent we cultivate love and compassion for all beings, our self-obsession weakens. Our mind becomes far broader and more expansive, not obsessed with the here and the now and the immediate and myself. But our focus becomes far more long-term and far broader. So as we develop this wish, may all beings have happiness. May all beings be freed from suffering. And I will bring this about. We're shifting the focus away from ourselves, making this far broader to encompass each and every being. And as this becomes more ever deeper set within us, more sincere and genuine, then as we encounter hardships in our spiritual journey, our strength of mind will ensure that we are not overcome by hardships, but rather, with some joy, we'll transform them, and persevere because we see the great benefit of our goal.
Dine zadang jugi jambadan sewa komyadi ranjisen samlo meba suyadi jambadan sewa komyadi jambadan sewa komne janju simkiye gyudiyan jambadan sewa komyadi 제가 jambadan sewa komyadi janju simkiye gyu ane ranjisen meba suyagi ko ranjisen nyembo chagore.
To make it very clear then, the cultivation of love and compassion is indispensable, because it is the cause that leads to the eradication of grasping at oneself as dear. Moreover, love and compassion is the cause to generate actual bodhicitta and become a bodhisattva. And therefore, thirdly, love and compassion is also the cause for enlightenment itself.
Lunga yusun shala nyoba chigme sempege tsurum sungu gure saji kasa dishero jesnada jambadan zewa kombaina dizu tsurum sonya die be yagu sungtu go yagu li tu go jambada zewa kombegi kasa shala nyoba chigme shen digi den dena sembe samlodu shuk samlodu yagu yobaina shala shen digi den dena sam shen dunga na dana samyodu shala chewe sambaling marwa shala chewe sambalena 아니 샬라 강아대야 실리거로 와. 지사 샬라 류가 유스무 체외 삼발레나 아니 젠기 류가 이주거네 류스뉴 샬라 뇌바치 샬라 강아리거로 와. 지사 샬라 강아 마중나 셈베 강아다 매바 주는 야고도 지사 샬라 디기 주는 야고도 서베 삼레여도 류가 이수 예저든 수름디야 빼 시우지 야고질레도 거래.
Yesterday we looked at the first spiritual instruction from Gendün Gyatso, which is that of ethical restraint, where we restrain the mind from coming under the influence of the afflictions so as not to harm others in any way. So this is our basis. Now, as was said yesterday, this is the basis or the foundation for all good qualities. And with such a foundation, love and compassion can readily be generated, because there's a close relationship of mutual dependency between an ethical mind and a loving mind, and a relationship of mutual dependency between an ethical mind and a compassionate mind. And to the extent that love arises within us, the wish, may all beings be freed from suffering. Sorry, to the extent that love arises within us, the wish that may all beings experience only happiness, how could we ever bring them harm? So in this way, our love aids our ethical restraint. And equally, our ethical restraint enabled us to generate love. And so too with compassion, the wish may all sentient beings be freed of pain and misery. To the extent we are compassionate, how could we be unethical and harm others? Similarly, being ethical and the determination not to harm others is the ideal foundation to generate compassion. So therefore, these three meditations are entwined. They are mutually dependent. Ethical restraint, love, compassion.
델레야 매버 방고리 세디 지나 태바 진비경한 쪽에 삼제 산지고 토비 치르도 냠내 제발라 라지 상방고리 지나당 저기 제세시발의 진비게 주주나래야 가르송 거라서네 dunga dorje semyeja dunga ni dunga ba gyukhs chik rang dewa de kasa dewa de jang ane timu be rangi dewa chadar chom saji disungore.
This self-cherishing mind, this we have to abandon in order to attain bodhicitta, to become a bodhisattva. Moreover, we need to eradicate it so as to attain enlightenment. The great master Shantideva, in his text, The Bodhisattva's Way of Life, covered the generation of the other cherishing mind extensively. So, to quote one verse, though beings long to be rid of suffering, they run directly towards suffering itself. Though longing for happiness in their confused ignorance, they destroy their own happiness as if it were an enemy.
제가 가르쳐오르되 누가 dorje semyeja dunga ni le ngombar gyukse de ta nga so chasanalya dunga so de moya dunga de meba soyage samlo yores 제가 di yorde 이냐 나 저게 내가 dunga meba soyage 탑람 내가 가르치고선 dunga 용의 규디야 내가 지고res 제가 되네지도 아니 dunga디 meba soyage 탑로 dunga 망할리고 그래시 제가 dunga dorje semyeja dunga ni de ngombar gyukse de dun가니 매바 쓰고 매바 쓰려요. 지금 매바 쓰게 탑람람 가르쳤던 것은 dun가 영화의 규딜이야 비싸고 규싸고 그래서 제가디 dun가 매바 매바 쓰고 말했어요.
Looking at the first two lines, though beings long to be rid of suffering, they run directly towards suffering itself. So here, we all are the same in longing, in yearning to be for freedom from suffering. But our attempts to gain freedom from suffering are so deeply flawed that we keep accumulating further causes for suffering. So despite wanting freedom from pain, freedom from misery, because our method, our technique is deeply flawed, we end up accumulating ever more causes that will lead to more suffering.
다양한 배선의 수배나 땅아들이야 지금 강아 세계 돈달이야 소소 강아들 강아들 매버 소야게 돈달라 아니 가는 중에 지게 가르침이 가르쳐베네 지구마 시고베네 구미절라 구마고야 돼 가르치는 구고라서는 코로나 디기도야다 코로나기 동아 세계 돈달이야 아니 구마도 구고래 제사데 동아 세야도 코로나 디기도야 탑로면 동아 세계 매버 동아디 매버 소야게 돈달라 아니 그 내가 가르쳐봐 매버 소야게 탑람 가르쳐봐서는 현다기 잘라서 구마구마로와 제산다 구마구와 될 때네 내가 뜻이 되기다 동아 세야 용거때 디기 제부 가르쳐서네 되는 구마구와 될 때네 세들이네야 아니 년도비게 소소 주의세 청방다다 녀바다야 강아지 리도와 아니 디마세 구마구에다 디바사 디게가도 레규르게 셰베나 디게 제부 디게 개와 치마이나 동아영야 규사고레스 제가 디 가르스나 동아 도디게 셈 요르데 동아 매버서에게 탑람라 가르쳐서 동아 영야 규디레 레가레 베주체바인자 디용고레스 지나디 대시 가서 랑체서 나랑 디기도 나라 동아 세고도 셈베 랑체서 삼로시 디게 랑게 동아 세베돼 동아 세야 된다라 생기 잘라 구마고야도 초야다 되는 지어도 아니 디기 내가 갑다고 내가 베지다도 어디 강아되어서야 라서다 디기 되서 아톱스마선 베디기 중에도 용구로 이나디 제라 아니 강아리 용으로 해야 돼. 그래서 동아니로 뭐 동아 요야기 탑람들이야 베지던 거래서
Despite having this motivation with behind all our actions to attain to abide in happiness and attain freedom from suffering, due to our mistaken understanding of the causes that lead to happiness, we end up creating further causes for suffering. To give an illustration that's easy to understand, wanting happiness, someone is motivated in their physical behavior, verbal behavior, and their way of thinking. But with a mistaken method, they will steal from others, take what's not theirs. So yeah, they are stealing, wanting happiness. But if they're caught, and they're imprisoned and they suffer from social shame and confinement, happiness is not achieved, not even in this life. And of course, they create causes for suffering in future lives. So this is an illustration that's easy to understand. But this is behind what we do. Striving for happiness. We engage in methods that lead to the accumulation of causes for further suffering.
지게 내가 가르쳐에 내가도 동아시에 대한 디기 주역이 돈다 지고로 와서 지미 현다 고화다야 비네 소속이 지게 소속이 개판 중요해야 된다라 지사 소속 개판 중요한 소속이 동아시에다 디기 주역에 삼 딜리고라 디돈달에 셴 고화다야 리고래 아니 지 준시에 받아 고화다야 라서바 지는 아주 지게 마 편주 마 잡아디에 가르친 개월선 소속이 개하다 소속이 디기용하다 강아세야기 당한줄 강아제의 파기디 하고 지금면서 대자월 코메바 소시안에 당한줄 디기용 그래 맞아 동아 세주고를 선비게 삼로 지여로와 디인자디 지마시켜야도 안디 이제는 안 소설이야 이제 강아 만 소설하는 강아 뭐리고로 당한줄이 지금 내가 가르쳐야 되네 뒤로와 되네게 이제 사다 지구마고 와이나다 셴고 활동을 진짜서 준시에나다 셴리야 지금아주 초보접 집하지 등르다베네 소수기 강아세야다 소수 디기 주에 된다라 디 초보접 동야 니동 다야다 디지고로와 진짜 디 제보들라 아니 체텔이네 소소래 강아리고래 아니 디 맞저기 최유 코네 레균의 고셰반 디 레앙한 바사제 개와 치마이네 아주 동아야 규체고래 진짜 디네 인자 디 디기 주에기 탑람디 베시나한테 노고요래 해서고다데
The motivation behind all our activities is this wish for happiness for ourselves. And motivated by this wish for happiness, but not understanding what the causes for happiness are, we end up lying to others, taking advantage of others, abusing others physically or verbally. And we do so wanting our own benefit. And sometimes with a more expansive mind, wanting the benefit for my group, my family, my community, my nation. And putting ourselves and those that we identify with for now as my group, first and foremost, valuing our happiness over that of others. We engage in stealing from others, lying to others, talking badly about others, taking advantage of others. Or those with sufficient power, declaring war on others. So here we see that despite wanting happiness, despite wanting freedom from suffering, because of our delusion, we keep engaging in activities that create causes for ever more suffering.
대화 되게 팀을 배랑게 대화 자들 좀 써야 돼. 도나 지발이다. 시바나 대화 되게 수 대화 되게 안직 내가 자와 좀 요도 제가 내가 레타디 대화 영역에 디제는 동화 연구에 받아 하 먹고 같이 디목세 하 먹고 kiến 아니 지게 잘리아 체위게 아니 동화 영역에 규대 배주제요도 아니 랑게 대화 영역에 삽들 봐 동화 연구를 제가 자디 랑게 대화디 아니 자나시 매바서셔 거래서 매바서셔 디삽을 동화리 거래서 디스모를.
And to read the verse again, which is from the end of the first chapter of the Bodhisattva's way of life. Though beings long to be rid of suffering, they run directly towards suffering itself. Though longing for happiness, in their confused ignorance, they destroy their own happiness as if it were an enemy. So the first two lines and the second two lines have the same meaning, coming at it from a different perspective. So in your reflection, reflect at how beings in their ignorance engage in cultivating the causes for further suffering, despite wanting to be rid of suffering. And they destroy their own potential for happiness, despite wanting happiness, because they are ignorant about the causes for happiness. So when you reflect on this, the meaning is the same of the first and the second half, but you can come at it from two different perspectives.
다 삼다 내가 주는 삼다 가용 것은 다 나랑 디기 고고요 나랑 동안 시게 삼나도 매네다 소소게 동안에 게디나 소소 동안자야 용도 그래 게디나 소소 강아 주네 세투고 마로 와스 지산다 랑 대화 고고도 셈베 삼나도 맨다 랑게 디기 용야 돈달이야 근데 내가 얘기 말해 제자다 랑이 디기 용야 주네 미도 와스 랑게 동안에 매바 소고 셈베게 삼나도 맨다 랑게 동안 매바 소디고 말 게디나 동안이야 디디 용 쉬우라서 디디 따바른 지금 민도 삼백에 삼싱으로 와다. 랑 지진 삼로대 안수 고해레샤스. 랑 지진 요번에 랑 제바 진바인자다. 지게 강하게 줘야다. 디와 지켜반 줘야 돼. 두투거지다. 랑 지진 삼면데 소소로 게디나 강하게 연구를 삼백에 삼로 용식으로 와다. 지자 랑 지진 삼로 매와 소요를 해야 돼. 다다 차기 민도 삼백에.
When reflecting on this topic deeply, it's quite possible for the thought to come, if I put the needs of others first and foremost, I'm going to experience difficulties, and I want to be free of pain and suffering. I do hope others experience happiness and are freed from suffering, but I also want to be freed of suffering. I don't want to add to my own burden of suffering. So therefore, surely, I can't give up on myself. I have to continue to grasp at myself as dear, because I don't want to suffer. If I'm being sincere and genuine with myself, whilst I do have the wish for others to be freed of pain, I don't want to suffer. And therefore, if I give up on grasping at myself as dear, my problems may end up getting far worse, and I do not want that.
Dini samlo yungur de ina rang chizing samlo mena and chizing samlo da samlo de meba na rang ya be chi rangi tigi mutuya da rangi dunga sem segi meba angedina dunga ya de ti zao yin mare chizada rang chizing doksho de gar dorsun shensimje de dewa de dena sem bada shensimje dunga da dana ni be samlo di gomba ina na zule tigi moya ya da dunga ya khaya marda gar dorsun 랑 지진에 삼로 삼당되네 디기 주변에 내가 디기도 용식이래 이나 디기도 푸른부 윤링고 땜부 매바지다 아니 디기디야 총아 총슈를 차고 그러지 현sem전 탐제 디기 대화도 되나 선배 삼로지다 심전도 동안에 자나 선배 잠조 공명도 디기랑이야 디기다 디기 슉체리고 그래서 동화 아니 레라 세투고 그러지
Such a misunderstanding may readily arise, and that is okay when it comes from reflecting well. But then continue your meditation, go deeper, come to recognize that the self-cherishing mind, grasping oneself as dear, is the cause of all our suffering. Whereas the other cherishing mind, grasping others or apprehending others as dear, this is the source of all freedom. And why so? To the extent that our entire continuum is moistened by love and compassion, we are not going to suffer. To the extent that love for others and compassion arises, our mind will be broad and expansive. And to the extent that our love and compassion pervade our continuum, all life's trials and difficulties, and all our unfulfilled wishes and problems will be seen in their truer perspective as really unimportant, because what we are holding as dear, as important, is the welfare of others. So such a broad and expansive mind is not harmed by life's difficulties, because something of greater value is seen as is held at the forefront of one's mind. And in this way, one's mind is powerful and strong, as well as gentle and open. In this way, life's problems do not harm one, and one is always able to have energy and strength to give to others.
rang digi tuyada dunga sege dondala nga lobjang yakbo chegudu shen yakbo changgudu di changla bena nga digi chema mongba da digi tuyada dunga se thugure sembe samlo chikcha chesa da ngara digi yoya da chi dunga se dondala ngi chi 최대 yakbo ma chebena ngara dunga yoya kanga yungure di inza 최대 제야다 디체야사 chesa da ngara digi tuyada dunga se dondala ngi penjo roshi masa베나 ane chi 사고도 sembe samdaji chesa da nga 주게 야갈레 가릴레베나 당을 뼈천조샤는 소수기 최대한 제야다 안에 소수기 안지게 튕긴 덮시 제야다 안 소수기 시행자에게 군노들의 랑이 디기 주야다 랑이 갈레 강아세게 된다라 군노 디케제 롭종 지고로와 롭종 지고로와 되네 다 양군노 지리야 다 대신 저 랑치스 현치스 삼바체베나 제 현심자 탐지 디기 주고도 현심자들이 동안에 자고고도 제자당 회디 심전 탐지기 디기 주여 동안 자야라 나라에 롭장 약고고도 제장이 롭장 약고 신바이나 니 현리에 판도 제투 그래 현기 강아세 투 그래 제장 나라한테 주고 대당으로 매바이나 니 현리 간에 수록 제투 그래 현 판도 같이 주 제장 현리 판도 제야다 현기 두이 등 동아세야 돼 디기 주버래 나라 안 수부디 최대 약고고도 안전자 소소 지금 벤처를 매네 샬로로 wak한데 시투 그래 제가 되는 상에 현심전 탐지를 편버 줘야 돼 현이 동아세야 현이 디기 줘야 된다래 니디스네 안데 지게 벤처 탑다야 돼 지긴 선배 삼노다다 운디니기 돈에 공원들 직디 랑지징 돈에 디지고래 직디 현지지 돈에 지고래 돈다 미유 줘야 되라 랑 최대다 랑이 튕긴 줘야 양 시행자야 차서 니가 리고래 디니디 지난 현지징이 삼단에 랑이야 최된 매바다 변조 마야야다 로종 마야야 요마래 지난 랑지징이 삼단의 용요바다 매네 경라야바 되는 시요 말이지
We all know that to live a healthy life, we need to live a happy life, we need to be physically in as good health as we can be, and we need comfortable material conditions. So in order to bring this about, one engages in various activities. So looking at that situation, but from two different perspectives. The first is the ordinary perspective, where one is concerned about one's welfare. And the second is what we aspire to, concerned about the welfare of others. The activity will remain the same. So knowing that to lead a happy life, we need to be healthy, we will go to the gym, we will work out, and we'll find it a little bit difficult, but we'll persevere, because we know we need to be in good shape, so as to live as healthy a life as possible, and therefore be happy. And we persevere through those hardships so that we can be healthy. Likewise, we also need to have a certain level of material comfort and security. So therefore we go to work, we attain an education and we go to work, and we persevere through the various hardships that are associated with our employment. Someone else engages in those same activities with wishing a very similar outcome. They want to have a healthy body, and they want to have financial security. So they're engaging in the same activities, wanting that same goal, but they are doing it with a motivation not focused on themselves but on others. Such a person will persevere through the same hardships, they'll encounter the same difficulties, such as perhaps if it's a personal coach being over-enthusiastic, or work colleagues and a boss who perhaps aren't always so wonderful, but their approach to those difficulties will be so different, because they will see those difficulties in a very different perspective. They will hold first and foremost that by me being healthy and financially secure, I can be of great benefit to others in this life. So the hardships I'm experiencing in my physical training and in my place of work, these aren't important compared to the great goal that I've set for myself and the impact I can be on others. So such a person will not experience the hardships related to good health and to employment in the same way. They will hardly be perceived as hardships at all. They will have nothing to complain about after time at the gym or a day at work, because those hardships are not hardships. These are just seen as small but necessary steps to achieve a goal of great importance.
디엔자다 가족이 semjen 탐지기 디기 주비알라 소소리아 변주 튕긴 주비아 안 소소게 르버티 상소야 안 소소게 시윤 자야 디게 semjen 탐지기 되나 삼다 제바 제 직제 군롱 semjen 탐지기 되나 삼다 군어 제 직제 다 군어디 랑제제 랑이 지부고 디기 주야다 동아 세게 디삼노 토네 군어 토네 랑기 시윤 자야 랑기 디기 주야 안에 가서 랑기 최된제야 안 소소게 튕긴 주야 되게 지산이가 튕긴 주야래 디 랑기 류게 디기 주 가서 최된제야래 안에 시윤 자야래 직발에 이나 군노디 지디 semjen 탐지 디기 주야 된다라 semjen 탐지 동아 세게 된다 군노 토네 지고래 지디 랑 semjen 탐지 파자 랑 직부 디기 주야다 랑 직부 동아 세게 된다 지고래 지산 군노 카하래 이제 내가 내니디 랑기 직바차 들어와.
In that illustration, all that differs between the two people is their motivation. They're both equally engaging in activities for health, to expand their education, and to achieve financial security. And they achieve a similar result of health, education, and financial security. So there's no difference in terms of the activity or the fulfillment of that aspiration. What differs vastly is their motivation.
나딩이래 개발 가려서네 개발 침부 지금 거래 가려운 거라서네 랑 그래서 셴 semjen 탐지 디기 주야다 셴 semjen 동화 세계 군론 디케제 저게 최대한 제배 나다 변조 주배 나다 시인 제배지나 셴라 미네바 셴라 미네베 토네 지고 변조 주배나 셴 고호다 주인시 한바시바 마인바 토네 정부 토네 용 거라다 정부 장샤기 셴다 미네베 토네 지고래 다랑 지부 삼다디 랑 지부기 디기 주야다 동아 세계 삼다에도 셴리 약강아 갈체나체 코유를 가르네나 네 마오바네 셴 지그 가ring문에서 델 삼마다지 소소기 변조 장야 주야 삼다에도 아니 셴리 뇌세 무실리고래 제사 랑기 디기 주야다 변조 사야데 랑기디 자해 그 주야다 랑치 삼도선에 셴고 화단에 주시기래 셴리 준시시기래 고소레선 제시기래 아니 코유를 뇌면이가 삼도균에 마다지 튕겨 주야디 랑치진 삼도 디토네 용고래 셴 디기 주야다 셴 동화세계 삼단에 주베나 변조 특시에는 어디 제베나 코유르나 셴 심제 망볼을 뇌주어 디진다 지금 말해 지금 말해 선배 땅이 고나제 셴레 준시에 고소레선 셴레 뇌그래 대디 지금 말해 선배 제가 디니즘 셴레 디기 주야다 셴 동화세계 제사 셴 지진이 삼로 토네 지게 특시 변조로다 가르 내가 장부 장샤 셴레 미뉴베도네 지고래 랑한 지진이 토네 제바는 가브리엘레 셴레 뇌바 용고래 가브리엘 장부마 제바 용고래 가브리 고소레선 제바 용고래 가브리엘레 장부야 용고와 되는 나소용 다 되니기 캬브라 되니기 용고래
Continuing with this illustration, the ordinary person, the person under the influence, under the control of the self-cherishing mind, grasping themselves as dear, they, in order to achieve their goals of good health and financial security, it will not bother them if they bring harm to others, if they lie to others or deceive others or take advantage of others. It will not bother them if the environment is harmed in their pursuit of financial security, because what is paramount is their happiness. And the impact on others, they may either disregard entirely or consider the happiness of others, the impact on others, to have some value, some importance, but compared to the fulfillment of their own desires, they are not important, and therefore will readily take advantage of others, deceive others, pollute the environment. They may at times act honestly, honorably, but that will not be consistent. What will be consistent is the fulfillment of their narrow self-interest. And the other person who has abandoned such a way of thinking, who's under the influence of the mind that apprehends others as dear, for them, they will strive to be healthy and financially secure, recognizing its importance, but they will not do so at the expense of others. They will not do so through harming others or taking advantage of others or harming our environment, because they value first and foremost the welfare of others. There is a need for them themselves to be healthy and financially secure, but not at the expense of others. So again here, we see that the activity and the result of health and financial security, that's not where the difference lies. The difference comes from the motivation and how those goals are thereby achieved.
당한절이야 매바 수요가 삼나 가래세디 랑치징이 삼로데 소수직 부된다 삼단에 삼로디 마 매바 수요고래 충을 땅고래 매바 수요고래스 다디 매바 수요 간에 수고르스네 잠바다 셴리아 잠바다 제와공고래스 셴 심전들이 대화데 되나 심배 삼로지나 동안데 자나 심배 삼로디 안에 야도고 니 공발에 때는 공면단에 가서 심전들 대화데 템바 동안데 당이 지구도와 심비게다 셴든 kurdu kewasya de ngi chigin sambe samlo digore di samlo de wudu sin gomche ya shukchera ta de ni ngi chealda simjan tamji sanyo go ba toku go sanyo go ba tobngi pando gyachim bo jetu sa de zanda simjan tamji de sanyo go ba topra sho simbi chaju simbi kigres di samlo de ngazu yane ya do gomgo edi dire zada di samlo de jamba dan zewa da janju simdi ngazu gyule yoban da sosu na gibu yongre lu chedele na gibu yon chechimale na sosu samda gibushi 용그래 대면 샘전 탐지를 편바 개침 주도 그래서 지자 샘전 탐지도 상요 고방토야 다대 뜸바샤기 투바 나신 안주의 도시네 차투 그래서 지자 딩아 주님네 지역을 디레서 당아주기 제직제디 디삼로데 야네노 곰도 세베나 야네노 삼담네 제직제 디레다 제직세도 거의 가소래 디 장도르치고로 와. 디 장도르전에 야야 주고로 와. 디레제
Recognizing the grave harm that the grasping at oneself as dear brings gives rise to the wish and later determination to eradicate the self-cherishing mind. And the technique for doing so, as I mentioned earlier, is to cultivate love and compassion. Because love and compassion has as its focal object all sentient beings. Having recognized the equality of all beings in their desire for and be worthy of lasting happiness and freedom from suffering, we generate the wish, may all beings be freed of suffering, may all beings abide in happiness. We generate that wish ever stronger through relying on reasoning to come to the point where it's not just a mere aspiration, but where we take responsibility for their welfare. It becomes no longer sufficient for us to express even a sincere and a genuine aspiration, may all beings be happy and freed of pain. But we see it as our responsibility to ensure that they achieve that state for themselves. And thereafter, taking responsibility for the welfare of others, we generate bodhicitta, which is the determination to become a Buddha so as to fulfill this responsibility. Our determination to become the most skilled of guides, a Buddha, so that we can fulfill our responsibility and skillfully guide others to cultivate the causes for happiness and eradicate the causes that will otherwise lead to suffering. In this way, we generate bodhicitta, become bodhisattvas, and attain the paths of the Mahayana. Such a beings, bodhisattva, in that life, they achieve incredible happiness. both physical and mental happiness, in that they are not perturbed by problems. And through the power of these causes, they can be sure of happiness throughout their future lives. So this is how all bodhisattvas train, and we too should as well, knowing that we have the seeds for love and compassion on our continuum, and in direct proportion to the energy that we place in our mental training, on our mental development, we will become bodhisattvas too.
Nadine ma tsishe savadilem, nadine ma karsungorasene, tanga zulia jiktunga yongi zawa de karchin yungorasene, nyomomba le tin ligorase, nyomomba che data dueshado, control da ngajada, nendegi chadolaso, nyomomba. The nyomomba digidiam, zawa karese, the nyomomba de karele, that ngazu gudan kinchile doing the dugubaza, you karele din yungorese, kansam chilia yaya chid, that. Rangxing yutuba, tenpa tuba sipe tenzin siachi. Tela teni li kore, tenzin de li kore. Ta nyomo sawa gyudi tenzin de res. Chazan ta tenzin de meba sui kore, tenzin de pang kore. Tenzin de meba sui, zawa de meba sui bayi na, xing le ma su na zawa de kuwa yu xaba ne, teni nyugu jie yo ma le. Zawa ma kuwa je gang diwa ya ji de yang gang diwa tuya jie xa xaba ne, yang je ma ne ya nyugu jie yung kore. Yang ye jie xe nyugu yin zoya gyu ne yo ma le. Zawa de kuwa yu xaba ne, teni ka dina jie yo ma le. Dina xing han tu nyomo ma jie di, 딱 덴진 마릭바디 매바 마셔봐나 아들이 야시 뇽모바 리기래 제가 덴진 마릭바디 매바셔 그래 해세요 제가 단 덴진 마릭바디 간에서 매바셔 그래 세도 다 덴마 두숨 거래
Reflecting this way, generating the determination to become a Buddha for others, will also lead us to reflect on what is it that keeps all beings trapped in the realms of samsara, ensuring that suffering experience follows suffering experience. We'll come to recognize that it's our own consciousness of ignorance, in particular the ignorance of self-grasping or the ignorance of true grasping. This is the root cause of all our pain, all our misery. And it's true grasping that must be abandoned, because if one eradicates the root, the sprout cannot arise. Freedom is attained. So how to do so? That comes in the next verse.
That's it, the dirwa. Chetamje, Dine Junwicher, Duen Rashin Dompra, Denla Popo. Yu Jen Nawa Kasharia, De Gumatabo, Nyamsolongs.
The seventh verse. Because all phenomena arise dependently, ascertain the meaning of being naturally empty. Whatever object arises as an appearance to consciousness, experience it as being like an illusion.
Chetamje Dine Junwicher, Chizan Chu Kandeshine, Penangazu, Shenchil, Dune Ungores, Penangazu Duji Chungobo, Chu Karina, Yudan Kin, Shenchil, Dune Tugores. Chidan Yudan Shenchil, Yudan Kin, Shenchil, Matuba, Kayo Mares, Chidan Yudan Kin, Shenchil, Dune Tugores. That in again, Duji Main Bichu Tawa in there, Shenchil, Dune Ungores. Chizadangazu Yoba, Karis, Yoba in there, Yobi Chuk and the Chimbena Chasa. Shen Tamjane, Shenchilla Dine Ungur Mado, Shenchilla Maduba, Gayo Mares, Chesa, Chetamji Dine Jewish, Shen Tamje, Shenchilla Dine Ungur, etc.
In the first line, because all phenomena arise dependently. All phenomena, without exception, arise dependently, or dependent arisings. Phenomena can be divided in many different ways. The most common division is into permanent and impermanent phenomena. Permanent phenomena are those which do not change momentarily. They also arise dependent. They have an interdependent relationship with other. And most obviously it is the case with the other division of phenomena, impermanent phenomena, or phenomena that do change momentarily. These, without exception, arise in dependence on causes. So all phenomena, without exception, whether permanent or impermanent, arise dependently.
There's not that Chetamji do Sine Dine Jungur, that do Sanzuki Kasan sheba je nganzu nangbege dawadi denjung daware sa jisan chue kanchine shenjile dune yongure ma do shenjile ma do ba ga yo mare sa de jisan denjung dawa sa de shenjile dune yongure sa denjige namsha kele de ta khasan sheba na de dire da.
As I mentioned in the previous talk, that in answer to the question, what is the philosophical view of Buddhism? It is dependent arising. It is exactly as this first line says, all phenomena arise dependently, without exception.
도신 락바로 삼당 당보는 저기 삼당에나 하고 두고래 되네 바지 차라라라 김제 삼당 여러 와다 지선당은 저기 매도로 지나 직돈도를 가르다 베네 당보 즉 사원지 마마조나 누구지에서요 말에 누구 맞게는 데려야 아니 동보 철셔서 제부 미야스가요 말어 그래서 당보 사번 주고 그래 다 사번디 여바 잠대는 제 사번디 조서 가나 샤신의 누구 계제 되네 돈도 차기를 디아요 말에 델리에 긴 사고 그래 사연나 지고 말에 류 추고 그래 제단 죄고 그래 제단 델리야 추 사다 추다 류다 죄 차상 누구 사번 디 차상 초용도 아니 누구디게 아니 델리야 누구리야야야 철신에 아니 지게 가지고 매도하셔 되네 매도하시네 지부민 낸 제부도 고장 가지고 배시다야라 거봐 제단 되네기 디락바락바 삼다나 데니시마도 데니시메발라 나주기 요하기네요 말와 디거 된도로 삼다베네 당 아주 미로시게베네 미디게 가능스 용고래서네 아주 미라 삼다베네 제사 미리게에 아마 바바 니게 투모 데니게 규게 망보 사바 데네 아니 기고 그래 디게 사내 아주 전부 자기 말에 내는 엄마다 엄마 동야다 칼라서야 데네 튕긴 아니 지 네 죄당 데니게 안 차워치도 장모 고고래 데네는 야지 장모 차도 죄 고고래 데네 튕기 망보지래 되는 저기 야 살롱지 야야 cherishing 아니 전부자 롭좀 제하나 아니 지기 현래 팬버주야 동아세 디기 주야 재산지 두고로 지든 데네서 현지를 되는 마도 현래 마도 봐 최간대신 현지를 되는 걸 마도 봐서 자기도 용어 말 데네 최템지 데네 중화래 사실 데네 중에 치르서
to start with, a very coarse presentation that's easy to understand, is that all sprouts require a seed. Or to put it another way, all results require a cause. But not only does a sprout require a seed, but for that seed to sprout, it requires suitable, appropriate conditions. In the case of a seed, it requires suitable soil, heat and moisture. Then it can ripen. Then the result will come from the cause. And as this first line says, everything that exists is dependent. For ourselves, for human beings, it's very clear. Humans are born, or we were born, in dependence on a variety of causes, our parents and other causes. And for birth, not only for birth where causes were required, but also for us to be able to continue to grow and develop. Many other causes needed to come together. We needed to be cared for by our parents, fed and clothed and so forth. And to become who we are now, so many other causes were required, such as education and so forth. So in brief, everything is dependent. There is nothing that is independent.
아디네 다도 진행하는 저게 심주시 제바체 근데 centric 제바체다 지바래 당한 저게 도신 centric 지고로 와도 규다게 데디 규데니 제베네 제보데니 용그레 제데니 제베네 뉴베데니 용그레서 베제바체 약간 주고 지게 남로 프로야레 남조레 마자레 차산도신 디디니 제오 디니지는 교가 두그레 디니지는 길리마 두마레세야다 디니지는 아무 야고 일리레세야다 진지 두신에 두 심주지 제바체 두신에 안디네 망고시 소용고로와 안디나시레 당아 저기 지금 용하디게 차산 현지를 뛰는 두고로와 차산 현지를 뛰는 두고여바데 두신의 심주 제바 나간서 두신 두 라바디게 심주 제자 디네 안주게라야 아주 류르바 심주제 rangi lüdi kanis tugo dede shimju. Tijido da rangi semde pa, rangi semde kanis kigo du shidu. Jazan kyudan gen shen de ne gomba de dejinil sheba naji janshu sem jamba nije gomba dene gomba le dene ane ji sem janshu sem de ya joya da nuba gomba ji dene tugo le saji. Adu shine sungorwa.
The type of presentation of dependence arising that I've just given, this is widely accepted throughout society. Scientists too show it on a subtler level, and it is widely known and understood that, for example, all the phenomena around us that we observe, all the technology in our world, both our current modern technology as well as the ancient technology, it all came about in dependence on causes. And there are the obvious manifest causes as well as subtler causes. And this is widely accepted in society. And it's not just what we can visually observe, but everything that comes through our senses, such as flavor and sound, comes about in dependence on causes. And therefore, one can recognize that they are dependent arisings. And both, again, on the obvious, manifest level, as well as slightly subtler levels, this is understood. And this is also the case with our minds, in that what appears as objects of thought, such as memories, comes about in dependence on causes. So too does our particular personality traits. These have come about in dependence on causes, because due to being habituated or particularly familiar with a way of thinking, those class of minds are very, very easily arise. And just like I've mentioned many times thus far, by meditating and becoming habituated to, for example, love or compassion or ethics, one creates ever more causes that result in our habituation to that way of thinking. So that way of thinking readily arises. So too therefore, not just with outer phenomena, but inner phenomena, these come about in dependence on causes.
Deniki tenchen jawa chunga jeba che samda jeba che be yechimbu shu chiwore chisada nganazuki chike dusin sam karkar tene kanishungu du kanisting du yuganas ki du dusin ko tentige namsha chichile tene du kanisting du tingmindu ta tingdu dingmindu sada de tene kanisting du sebe dusin 심지 de na ngazu nyomo bas야de konro kiede konro gan지 kidu 진짜 konro kiede de ngazu dusin ngazu rakwa samdan de sa고 그래 아주 공로치게 වෙ네. 다 공로다 기르 갑라들 남상삼다요 말. 공로지에 차는 마 잠자기로 와. 되는 뢰뢰 쳐야 되네. 대신에 공로다 가르치게 전 개발해 사실. 삼다데 진도시대 공로지에디 랑기 삼로데 니디디 제고 디 제고스는 디 don다 마두바체. 디 don다 마두데 디 공라샤세. 제사디 가르쳐 나세 랑치진 삼로 디디. 제사디 다봉에 랑치진 삼로 지키도 왔어. 디기 미유디 되바디 마두디 콘라도 와서 콘르세디 디지 갈라스네 디 콘라디 랑치 랑기 되바디 마팀바 텔라테네 콘라샤 랑기 되바디 가르레스나 랑치제 삼데네 레샤스 두신의 삼다데 디주가도 되스 라와를 하고 두고와 근데 삼다다 랑치제 삼데 간슬리기 요래 사지 야치데데 디고 야자와 자와래 리고래
The presentation of dependent arising is of crucial importance in Buddhism. But its importance doesn't lie in understanding the external material world. Its importance is to do with understanding our own minds, and thereby being able to transform our way of thinking. So to take an illustration of anger, not when one's mind is overwhelmed by anger, but when one's mind is calm and at ease, then recall a situation where anger arose and think, why did it arise? And one will most probably immediately think of the external conditions, what someone did or what someone said. Put those aside and look at your inner process. What led to the arisal of anger? What was going on within oneself? And one will come to then recognize that at the root was the grasping at the self as dear, the self-cherishing mind. This was at the root.
마 주부구레서 삼당구레 동반이 삼당 지사 동반이 세디 덴지기 남샤 삼당지 그 동반이도 주부구레서 그래 된라신 된라신 동부 된라 펩시드 된디 된다디 라신 주부 동바레 인다 마이 동바 인바디 가리딘 주고서네 덴진 저와 주와 삼당지네 나 라신 동부 동바 인바디 바 주부구레서 된라 펩시
The second line, or let's read the first two together. Because all phenomena arise dependently, ascertain the meaning of being naturally empty. So this is bringing together the harmony between dependent arising and emptiness, where through reflecting on how all phenomena arise dependently, one recognizes that they cannot exist by way of their own nature or essence. They have to rather be empty of their own nature, or be naturally empty. So in this way, we bring the two together. Through reflecting on dependent arising, we recognize that all phenomena arise dependently, and therefore they cannot exist by way of their own nature or inherent existence or essence, but are rather empty of being inherently existent, empty of are naturally empty.
제산다 라신이 동바 세디 라신이 동비 동바니 세 라신 동바레 라변도 동라데 직 말해라고 그러다 직 많이 직 말해서 가래 말해라도 라신이 가래기 동바레에서도 가래기 동고라도 라신이 주바디기 동바레에서 라신이 주바세디 요 말해서 그래 라신이 주바세디 요 말해서 제산 라신이 주바디 매바디 김생 가래를 때나 하고 그래서 땡진 저와 중화 삼단에 당바이나 나 라신 주바세데 매바하고도 그래서 지산 라신 주바세데 요 말에서 라신 주바 동바세데 라신 주바세데 요 말에 지산 라신 주바 매바들라 동바니 세고래지래.
Just first, as the translator just saying, what is translated here as naturally empty is you'll be more familiar with as being empty of inherent existence. So in the verse, it's just presented in a more condensed way. So naturally empty means empty of inherent existence. So now to come to Geshe's commentary. What does naturally empty or empty of inherent existence mean? So this term empty, it implies a negation, that something is absent. And what is absent? It's natural existence or inherent existence or something existing by way of its own essence. That essence or nature is what is missing, is absent. And one comes to understand that if phenomena, through the presentation of dependent arising, one comes to understand that as phenomena arise dependently, they cannot exist by way of their own nature or naturally, or way of their own essence, because they arise dependently. So in this way, the two, dependent arising and emptiness, are seen as complementary.
나는 라신 주비게 동바이나 라신 주바세데 매바이나 나 라신 주바세데 간에 질라고 그래서야지. 제가다 두 섬나다 라신 주바세데 semlia dine chile rashin ruba lagore se di ngo song ko de ge chi ma cha ko re pena ju ge mi ji da chi mi di da tu gu ge na mi di da bo ngo shin go ro ngo ma shin na ane mi di ge ge sen tu a do ne mi sa mo ge de tu su ya ka yo ma ro da wo mi di ngo shin ba che di mi di re ngo shin ba chen da ko tu a ro ge tu a ro na da da tu gu ro mi di ngo ma shin ba ina ane tu ya yo ma ro ji san dine za 당한 주기 당보 라신 주바세디 간에지 레고레세디 방어신 거래 다 하고 되는지 레고레서 하고 거래 예천버리디.
This term then of inherent existence, it's crucial to understand its meaning, because just like, for example, if one is going to meet someone, travel somewhere to meet someone, if you don't know this person, who they is, how can one say, I'm going to meet them? One will have no idea who one is looking for. So similarly, one has to identify inherent existence in order to know its absence.
Rashing to Basi or the temper to Basi or rushing to Basi. Just a shen la Matio Pache, Suji la Matio Pache, Coron when you droop to Yoba, when down the mean, shen la Gala Matio, Coron when you droop to Michi Yobana, midi rushing to Basi or the name Shingo of Sine, Meadow of Sine, Gala and Matio, but you then Gala and Matio, Coron when you droop to Meadow of Shivene, rushing to Bala. The Niki Meadow and me, your was Yomarwa. The Jinga to check and the angel doing it to go as a Shesarwa. Chesa Gala and Matio Rangung when you droop to Yomare. Chesanta Gala and Matio Rangung when you droop to Yena. Yobina Della, Denisilla rushing to Basia, Dilla or Regere. That rushing to Bala, some Lamsa Chang, the Garsam Dawson, Gala and Matio Coron when you droop to the Denisilla or as a some Chago warrior. Chesant that Tongba city, that rushing to Tongba Ladu. Gala and Matio Rang when you tribeti, Meva, says Kuhorta.
So what is the meaning then of inherent existence? What would it mean if something were inherently existent? So first, there's some synonyms here. Something to be naturally existent, inherently existent, existing by way of its own essence or characteristics. These are all synonyms. And if something were to exist in that way, what would it mean? It would mean that it's independent. It would mean it's not dependent. So for example, if something is independent, it would be not dependent and therefore not depending on causes, because it is not dependent. So if, for example, a flower were independent, it would be not dependent on, for example, causes. It would not require causes to come into existence. No such flower exists. A person too, if it were independent, remembering independent now, it's the meaning of inherent existence, existing by way of its own essence or characteristics. If a person were independent, it would be, the person would not be dependent and therefore not dependent on causes. No such person exists. Then what does emptiness of inherent existence means? It means the lack of, the emptiness, or the lack of inherent existence. So the lack of, this term inherent is the same as we have here natural or nature. So lacking its own inherent nature is being empty of inherent nature or inherent existence.
Then Dusine, that Shashana Judo, Chisada Digi Nigi Tixi, that said Tishu, that is sharing the Dondabe Yachembore in that Duduchimato, Dondabe, Sabota, Yachemboda, and to get Chaba Chimbuki, Chugi, Nimbo Yamlan Chegi, Nimbo Dini Dina Sungorada.
Our time together in the session is impermanent and is almost at an end. So we'll leave it here for today with this food for thought. But in these two verses, the 6th and 7th, the meaning is extensive, it's vast, and can be spoken on and meditated on for hours and years. But what is presented in the 6th and 7th verse is the essence of the Mahayana Dharma.
Dini Zadang Juge, Didinging Juge, Karisam Tayagi, Dangan, Lalen, Musam Tayadi, that Janshu Sem Jamba, the Ninja, Janshu Sem Gom Gurias, Dikumba, the ranching, some of the Meva Soga, the Ranshu Meva Chatu Gurias. That Hazan and Juge that Jike Jamdra and the Jike Surim Soyada, 디고셔 다 돈다니보다 가상나 기능아도 디셔봐 되게 나보 가르쳐고 세대다 저기 나도 시시네 지고래 나 지금 저기 담보 안 지게 다데딩아도 semje 탐제 대화다 되나 sem비게 삼로치 땅 네 대화된 바스 sem데 되네 semje 탐제 동안다 자고고도 sembe 동안다 자나 sembe 삼로치 땅 도 신의 삼땅 세위젤이야 안디니바 숨바딜이야 다 semje 대화다 된바다 동안다 자와다 니 지긴 sem비게 내 삼로치 땅 되네 진에 안디제 디던달라 디제라 디장의 semje 탐제기도 나 상요고바 토버쇼 sem비게 삼도 진에 안도 진에 아주 직검라잡 안디제라 아니 가르소거스네 다 semje 탐제기도 나 상요고바 토고자 당이 가르쳐도 류가 유심요권에 아니 지게 샤나 뇌비 자와사 자와기는 지금이 SB 추름소야다 되네는 다 semje 탐제 동아타들을 껴비 누버 수요로스 겹녀 건조스물 겹녀 건조스 껴그리 sem비게 겹녀 건조스물 이치제야 겹녀제야 되네 자당이 semje kewi le se kewa se di chungchung kan chi nang gi sa gi se kewa kedi kewa tugi se be diba se di chungchung kan nang gi pa me ba so ya gi ji ma ju ya da tabshi chi gi se be du se ne sam da de nga zu da ka sang ke ni da di ring she di da tu ma sam da di cha go re 제자다 기회에 가리나 차상 지기인스 개와 차상 춘추 있나 두기인스 디버 춘추 있나 지기메 선배 디버 봉기 개와 두기인스 선배 삼다데
To summarize what we've looked at thus far then, the text has presented the teachings in the sequence that they are meditated on. And a skilled meditator will be skilled through having meditated in this sequence. And a skilled meditator will also meditate in the same session on the forward sequence and the reverse sequence. So looking at it in the reverse sequence then, at the meditation in the reverse sequence, we reflect on love and compassion, knowing that this is the unmistaken method to eradicate the root cause of all suffering, the grasping at the self as dear. And love and compassion are the essential prerequisites to generate bodhicitta and become a bodhisattva. And these, which have, as was mentioned, their basis of ethical restraint, and that there is a relationship of mutual dependency between ethics and love and compassion. So the meditation starts with reflecting on how all beings are the same, ignoring superficial differences, and focus on how we all want happiness and be freed from suffering. And this is the motivating impulse behind all our thoughts and activities. Recognizing this equality between beings, we generate the thought, may all beings have happiness. And the second, may all beings be freed from suffering. Then we develop this further. I will do all that I can to ensure that beings abide in happiness and accumulate only the causes that will lead to happiness. And moreover, I will do all that I can to ensure that beings attain freedom from suffering and eradicate the causes that would otherwise lead to suffering. This is my responsibility. And we meditate on that now in the third point further. In order to fulfill this responsibility, I must become a Buddha, the most skilled of guides. So the first point of the meditation was reflecting on the quality of beings, wanting happiness and freedom of suffering, and may they achieve that. The second, I will do so, it's my responsibility. The third, I will become a Buddha for their sake. So here we have generated bodhicitta, the determination to become a Buddha, the most skilled of guides, so that we can be of supreme benefit to others. Then, the fourth step of the meditation. In order to benefit others, I will ensure I do not harm others. I will ensure my mind is never influenced by the afflictions and is freed from the afflictions. So this is ethics. Then that's the fourth step. The fifth step. Who has the capacity to guide me, to train and develop my mind so that I can fulfill this aspiration of becoming a Buddha for others, so that I can fulfill this determination not to harm others, so that my ethics can be pure. It's the 3 jewels. So here we meditate on refuge. And then the last step, I think the 6th, is in order to actualize all these preceding steps, I have to ensure that at every opportunity to accumulate virtue, I will do so. And I will avoid all negativities without exception. In other words, I'll ensure at all times, both in and out of meditation, that my mind is virtuous and freed of the afflictions. So this then is the presentation of the meditation in the reverse sequence.
Amen. Okay.
So thank you. Then we'll conclude here for today and continue tomorrow. Thank you.